In 24 hours, the moon will cross Earth's mortal boundary. This video has been censored. Watch it before it disappears. What once seemed like an ordinary night with the moon shining serenely becomes something unexpected, something that goes beyond our understanding. The moon, which has always been there in the same place, begins to move in an unusual way, approaching the Earth, not slowly, as we know she does every day, but with frightening speed, out of control. And as this happens, time seems to slow down and a feeling of dread begins to take over. The alarm sounds, the lights flash, and you see a message on the screen. Today, it can all end. What would you do? The moon has crossed the Roche line, the forbidden boundary where Earth's gravity crushes it. Within minutes, satellites begin to fall, and the sky transforms into a cosmic battlefield, and the force of attraction between the Earth and the moon becomes more and more intense. Imagine that, instead of remaining calmly in the sky, the moon begins to fragment. Pieces of it fall onto the planet, and the Earth begins to be pulled into a spiral of cosmic destruction. What seemed like a peaceful night turns into the biggest apocalyptic event in our history. Would you know where to hide when the first piece of the moon hits your city? A moon that has always been there, constant and harmless, now becomes an agent of destruction. Panic would take over. The streets would fill with people trying to understand what to do, trying to find a way to escape this impending catastrophe. But at the same time, a feeling of helplessness would spread. There would be no contingency plan. There would be no place to hide. What would be most important to you at that moment? Survival? The fear? Or the fact that the end of the world is about to happen? Scientists lied. The moon is not moving away. See the leaked images that prove that it is 10 times more dangerous. The moon is constantly in motion, and any change in the forces that keep it in its orbit can cause unimaginable damage. What began as a simple satellite, the moon, would become the cause of our destruction. And even with all our technology, knowledge, and preparation, it would be impossible to escape. We are at the mercy of the cosmos. Now, imagine the Earth being pulled by the gravity of a fragmenting moon. The magnitude of a catastrophe like this cannot be underestimated. The impact would be devastating, creating shockwaves, tsunamis, destruction on a global scale. The climate would destabilize, and life on Earth, as we know it, would cease to exist. The end of an era, the end of everything we know. But what about you? How would you react? How would you face something so big, so immense? Would you stand by, helpless, watching the end? Or would you try to act, even though you know there is no escape? What if you only had a few hours, or even minutes, to live? What would you do with that time? How would you say goodbye? How would you live the last moment of your existence, knowing that there is no turning back? What matters in this apocalyptic scenario? Survival, fear, or something deeper? Something related to humanity? The end may seem distant, but what if it was closer than we imagine? The moon, which had always been a constant, would now become Earth's greatest enemy. Imagine if all this happened today, without warning, without time to prepare. The end would come, and with it the devastation that would spread across the planet. What would you do at that moment? This is not just an exercise in imagination. Science warns us that something like this can happen. The moon, upon exceeding the Roche limit, would fragment, and this would have a devastating effect on the Earth. The moon's gravity would become so intense that the Earth would begin to lose its stability. What would you do knowing that this event could occur at any time? Now, before you continue, think for a moment. What would you do if the end were within your reach? What would you do with the last few hours of your life? How would I face the immensity of the universe, the imminent destruction? Stop and think. Would you be ready for the impossible? The answers to everything we've been discussing are about to be revealed, and you won't want to miss what comes next. What would happen if the moon fell to Earth today? The answer could change everything you thought about our planet and our destiny in the cosmos. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share now before YouTube deletes this video. Tag who you would save if the moon fell tomorrow, because believe me, what comes next will be impressive. Imagine a scenario in which the moon, our natural satellite and celestial guardian for billions of years, crosses the Roche limit, an invisible boundary in space where Earth's gravitational forces become so intense that any celestial object begins to disintegrate. This is the starting point for one of the most cataclysmic events in the history of the planet, the fragmentation of the moon. The moment it surpasses this limit, an instantaneous explosion does not occur, as many might imagine. Instead, the process is slow and agonizing. as if the cosmos were deliberately taking apart a cosmic puzzle piece by piece. The moon begins to break into gigantic pieces, each carrying a devastating energy capable of annihilating entire cities. These fragments, driven by Earth's gravity, begin to rain down on the planet like celestial bombs, turning the sky into a horror show. Each piece that enters the Earth's atmosphere releases an absurd amount of energy, equivalent to thousands of nuclear bombs. Imagine this, a meteor the size of a skyscraper hitting your city. There would be no escape. Global temperatures immediately begin to skyrocket as forests turn to ash and oceans boil under the continued impact of these fragments. The air becomes unbreathable, and the sound of explosions echoes like endless thunder, shaking even the strongest of hearts. It's an apocalyptic scenario that seems straight out of a science fiction film, but in this case, it's pure reality. Scientists knew this. Yes, they were aware of the risk for years, but they chose to hide the truth. A secret report, now revealed, suggests that the moon contains liquid water at its core, a discovery that could have saved humanity by providing invaluable resources for survival in times of crisis. However, this information came too late. Now the fragments are falling, and the Earth is on the brink of total collapse. In this context, a distressing question arises. What would you do if you knew that one of these pieces held the key to human survival? Would there still be time to regain that hope? As the fragments continue to fall, something even more frightening begins to take shape around the Earth: rings of destruction. These rings resemble Saturn's famous rings, but here they are not beautiful or fascinating. On the contrary, they are synonymous with death and devastation. Each piece that enters the atmosphere releases a colossal amount of energy, causing irreparable damage to the global ecosystem. As temperatures rise, the climate collapses. Entire forests catch fire, oceans partially evaporate, and wildlife disappears in a matter of days. The sky, once blue and welcoming, is now a dark blanket covered in dust and soot, the result of constant explosions and increasing volcanic activity. Speaking of volcanoes, the worst is yet to come. Global volcanic activity erupts simultaneously, as if the planet itself is trying to expel its internal pain. Dormant volcanoes awaken, releasing magma and ash into the atmosphere in proportions never seen before. The sky turns into a black blanket, completely blocking out sunlight. This phenomenon, known as volcanic winter, plunges the planet into lethal cold after unbearable heat. Temperatures drop drastically, freezing everything in its path. Life on Earth, as we know it, comes to an end. Plants die without sunlight, animals succumb to lack of food, and humans fight desperately for increasingly scarce resources. Can you imagine living in that hell? How would I face the unbearable heat, followed by the deadly cold? What would be most important to you at that moment? Survive, protect your family, or simply accept the inevitable? These questions echo in the minds of all survivors, but the answers vary from person to person. Some choose to fight to the end, seeking refuge in underground bunkers or trying to find ways to escape the planet. Others, however, succumb to despair, unable to cope with the magnitude of the disaster. What if I told you that all this has already started? That the signs are there, but no one wants to see them? The small, unexplained seismic tremors, the abrupt climate changes, and the unusual astronomical phenomena, all of these can be interpreted as harbingers of things to come. The next fragment of the moon could hit your city in the next few hours, and you need to quickly decide who to save. Mark the ones that are most important to you, because trust me, what comes next will be impressive. The fate of humanity depends on your choices, and time is running out. In this apocalyptic scenario, every second counts. People run through the streets in panic, trying to find shelter or flee the worst affected areas. Communication between countries collapses, and governments try to implement emergency plans, but it is too late. Chaos reigns supreme, and the only certainty is that nothing will be the same as before. Even so, stories of heroism and sacrifice emerge. Families come together, strangers help each other, and scientists work tirelessly to find solutions, even when the odds seem to be against them. Ultimately, this event serves as a cruel reminder of our fragility as a species. Despite all the technological and scientific progress, we are mere spectators before the titanic forces of the universe. The fragmentation of the moon and its devastating effects on Earth are a warning that we must value our planet and protect it while we still have time. But unfortunately for many, this lesson comes too late. So reflect, what would you do if you were living this nightmare? How would you prioritize your actions in the midst of absolute chaos? And most importantly, what would you do to ensure that humanity had a chance to start over, even amid the ashes of a destroyed world? These are questions we all need to consider, because although this scenario is fictional, it forces us to face uncomfortable truths about our existence and our place in the cosmos. After the first few hours of chaos, the world as we know it no longer exists. The sky, once blue and clear, is now covered by a dense layer of dust, smoke, and ash, transforming the environment into an apocalyptic scenario. Earth, once a sanctuary for life, has now become a battleground between the immeasurable strength of the cosmos and the fragility of human existence. The first impacts of lunar fragments caused giant tides that devastated coastal cities around the globe. However, this was just the prelude to something much worse. As the larger pieces begin to reach the Earth's surface, the planet completely collapses. Imagine living on a planet where the atmosphere is literally on fire. The heat generated by impacts heats the environment to unimaginable levels, creating unbearable conditions for any form of life. Forests turn to ash in a matter of minutes, while oceans begin to boil under the extreme heat. The sky, once blue, is now an orange and red hell, lit by constant explosions and lightning that cut through the thick air. Breathing becomes almost impossible as the air is loaded with incandescent particles and toxic gases. In regions close to the impacts, temperatures reach levels so high that even metal melts, transforming urban structures into unrecognizable ruins. On the horizon, gigantic bubbles of boiling water emerge from the oceans, as if the planet itself were boiling. Meanwhile, explosions continue to echo across the planet, shaking the Earth's crust with unprecedented violence. Each new impact triggers cataclysmic earthquakes and devastating tsunamis, swallowing entire cities and dragging millions of people to the bottom of the ocean or into the abyss of destruction. The few remaining habitable areas become survival zones, where humans try to endure in an unforgiving environment. Desperate refugees wander the ruins, seeking shelter, food, and clean water. But these resources are scarce, and competition for them leads to violence and social chaos. Normality as we knew it has completely disappeared. But Earth is not the only celestial body affected by this cosmic catastrophe. The gravity altered by the fragmentation of the Moon begins to disrupt the orbits of other planets and asteroids in the solar system. The delicate balance that held the solar system together is being undone, and each movement triggers a series of interconnected events. Asteroids deviate from their usual trajectories, threatening to collide with other planets. Mars, Venus, and even Jupiter are beginning to feel the effects of this gravitational disturbance. As scientists try to understand the scope of this catastrophe, a harrowing question arises. Would we survive? Unlike apocalyptic films where destruction is instantaneous and dramatic, what follows is not a single event, but a prolonged series of disasters. Earth's nature, sustained by the delicate harmony between gravity, climate, and oceans, now lies in ruins. Gravitational relationships are altered, the climate has collapsed, and humanity is at the mercy of incomprehensible cosmic forces. Abrupt climate change, combined with intensified seismic and volcanic activity, creates a hostile environment where survival appears to be a matter of luck. In the first 72 hours after the start of the lunar apocalypse, people try to reorganize themselves, but normality is impossible. Communications have been destroyed, infrastructures are compromised, and governments have completely collapsed. The unbearable heat, lack of resources, and rapid changes in the atmosphere make the environment even more hostile. Are we really prepared to face an apocalypse? And more importantly, how would human history deal with a cosmic catastrophe of this magnitude? A soft voice echoes across the destroyed scenery. Would we survive? The answer is in history. In films, man faces cosmic forces with courage and dexterity, overcoming impossible obstacles. But in reality, human history shows that our ability to survive depends on learning from past mistakes. There are no solitary heroes, but a collective fight for survival, where unity and innovation can be the key to overcoming an apocalypse of this size. Cooperation between individuals, communities, and nations will be essential to face the challenges that arise. So what would happen 72 hours after impact? Would the survivors be able to create a new civilization, or would we be unable to resist the planet's violence and relentless chaos? What would be left of humanity in a world where fire and water would become our implacable enemies? What would we do if our future was determined by these cosmic forces? These questions hang in the air as survivors try to find answers amid the ruins. With every second that passes, the planet continues to transform. Conditions on Earth become more extreme, with temperatures oscillating between unbearable heat and lethal cold. Global volcanic activity erupts simultaneously, spewing magma and ash into the atmosphere and blocking sunlight. The volcanic winter begins, plunging the planet into deadly cold after the scorching heat. As nature tries to rebuild itself, a growing sense of hopelessness spreads. The first 72 hours are just the beginning. The survivors now face a new challenge, living in a world where death is all around, where humanity has been put to the test in a brutal and definitive way. And you, what would you do? How would you react to a lunar apocalypse, where Earth would become a field of destruction and rebirth? Mark who you would save, because believe me, what comes next will be impressive. The fate of humanity depends on your choices, and time is running out. Every decision made in this scenario of absolute chaos could mean the difference between survival and extinction. In a world where everything is at stake, what would be most important to you? Protect your family, try to rebuild civilization, or simply accept the inevitable and seek comfort in the final moments? So far, we've explored devastating doomsday scenarios where the moon comes dangerously close to Earth, causing global destruction. But do these catastrophic visions have a basis in reality? Or are we ignoring something fundamental about the universe and its laws? The truth is, while these scenarios are fascinating and worthy of exploration, they don't exactly reflect what's happening in the cosmos today. In reality, the moon is not approaching Earth. On the contrary, it is slowly moving away, a phenomenon that has profound implications for the future of our planet. We start with a surprising fact. The moon, far from being an imminent threat to Earth, is in fact moving away from us at a rate of 3.8 centimeters per year. This phenomenon, known as tidal interaction, occurs because the tides that the moon exerts on Earth's oceans generate a gravitational force that slowly pushes the moon away. This process is the result of a complex interaction between Earth's gravity and the planet's rotational energy. Over billions of years, this separation can have significant consequences, but they are not immediate. Rather than an instantaneous catastrophe, we are dealing with gradual changes that shape the Earth's fate over geological timescales. However, this does not mean that we should relax or ignore the impact of this separation. Although the moon is receding into the distance, its influence still shapes our planet's future in subtle but profound ways. As the distance between the Earth and the moon increases, the tides begin to weaken. The climate and biological systems that depend on these forces can be significantly altered. Imagine a world where tides are so weak that the oceans lose their current dynamics. Marine life, which depends on tidal cycles for reproduction, feeding, and migration, would be profoundly affected. Ecosystems would collapse, and global food chains could be destabilized. This scenario, although not immediate, is a real possibility that deserves our attention. But there is something even more intriguing. The moon's distance also influences the Earth's rotation. Over time, the gradual slowing of Earth's rotation can completely alter the rhythm of days and nights. Imagine a day that lasts weeks or even months. How would humanity deal with such an extreme solar cycle? Would it be possible to adapt our lives to a planet where time seems to stop? These changes, although imperceptible on human timescales, can radically transform the Earth's environment over millions of years. Plants, animals, and even humans themselves would need to evolve to survive in a world with completely different day and night cycles. This perspective leads us to reflect on the difference between fiction and reality. In films, the end of the world is always spectacular. Instantaneous explosions, seas of magma, and planets destroyed in seconds. But science tells us that the universe operates on much longer timescales. The true apocalypse is not a quick catastrophe, but a slow, drawn-out process. The moon's departure is a perfect example of this, an almost imperceptible change that, over geological eras, can completely transform the planet. This vision challenges us to think beyond human immediacy and consider the impact of cosmic forces that operate on temporal scales much larger than our individual existence. So what does this mean for the future of humanity? Are we prepared to face these gradual changes? Or will we be caught off guard, unable to react to forces operating on timescales beyond our comprehension? The answer is in history. When faced with global challenges, humans have demonstrated an incredible ability to adapt. From the Industrial Revolution to modern technological advances, our species has shown that it can overcome obstacles through planning, cooperation, and innovation. However, these qualities can only be applied if we are aware of the challenges we face. Ignoring the gradual changes in the cosmos can leave us unprepared for the future. Now, imagine a scenario where the moon is so far away that its influence on Earth is minimal. The oceans lose their tides, the climate collapses, and life as we know it needs to reinvent itself. Will humanity find ways to survive, or will we succumb to the relentless forces of the cosmos? These questions lead us to consider not only the role of the moon, but also the fragility of our planet and the importance of protecting the natural systems that support life. Without the moon's stabilizing influence, Earth could become a much more hostile place, with extreme weather and unstable ecosystems. And then another question arises. What happens when the moon becomes just a distant memory? She, who for billions of years was our silent celestial companion, may one day disappear from our sight, becoming a symbol of what we have lost as time progresses. Will we learn to value her presence before it is too late? The moon is not just a celestial object. It is an intrinsic part of human history and culture. From the first lunar calendars to the Apollo missions, the moon has been a source of inspiration and discovery. Its absence, even if gradual, can have a profound emotional and psychological impact on humanity. Physics is the protagonist of this story. She shows us that the universe is much more complex and fascinating than any science fiction. As we explore these impossible scenarios, we are reminded that the true magic of the cosmos lies in the small changes that, however imperceptible, shape our destiny. The moon's departure is just one example of how the forces of the universe are constantly in motion, influencing everything around us. Understanding these forces not only helps us predict the future, but also helps us value the present. And you, what would you do in the face of these possibilities? How would you deal with a global catastrophe or the gradual changes transforming our planet? The question remains, are we ready for the challenges of the future? The answer depends on our ability to learn, adapt, and innovate. We need to invest in science, technology, and education to ensure that humanity is prepared to face the changes that will come, whether fast or slow. I'm sure you like this video and want to explore more impossible scenarios, so leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to be notified whenever we post new content. Here, we will continue to challenge what we think we know about the universe. Comment below. What do you think about the future of the moon and Earth? Do you believe our understanding of physics is complete, or is there something we still don't understand? Share your thoughts and reflections. We can't wait to hear what you have to say. The next video is now on your screen, and it reveals impactful secrets. What comes next will blow your mind. A cosmic discovery so dangerous, it's been classified top secret. Click now, because this video can be removed at any time. And get ready, because what's coming will challenge everything you know about the universe, and you won't be able to breathe until the end. I'll wait for you there.